We have to discuss these pride parades that were all across the country over the weekend. You probably saw the clips on social media from New York City, especially coming down Fifth Avenue. And as someone who used to go to these pride parades back in 2017, 2018, there's a reason I would never participate at this current time, because the pride parades have descended into debauchery, they're sacrilegious, they're nasty, they're fringe, and they are also cringe. You have people just making fun of religion, making fun of God, and you can do whatever you want. You can believe in God, you don't have to believe in God, but why do you have to go out there on the street and make fun of God and make fun of other people's religions? And when I was looking at these clips, when I was looking at clips from the Pride Parade, all I could think was, these folks seem to have severe mental illnesses, right? In my opinion, these folks have severe issues. We need to open the asylums. They seem cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, crazy, okay, at the Pride Parade. And it didn't used to be like that. The Pride Parade would be fun people. They were celebrating. You actually wanted to get together and fight for equal rights. But the thing is, right now, LGBT folks have equal rights, okay? There are no rights gay people don't have in this country. Trans people have equal rights. And they just keep looking for new ways to constantly play the victim and to go out into the street and to make a spectacle. But you really don't even need Pride anymore. Pride was a fight for equal rights. Now, basically, it's an excuse to walk down the street naked and twerk on police officers and act all hooty tooty and crazy and to make fun of religion. So I found the pride parades to be gross. There's a reason most normal gays, and y'all know what I mean by that, there's a reason normal gays don't participate in pride anymore and don't want anything to do with it, because it's just turned into a clown show, an absolute clown show. And how come on Pride they're allowed to just walk down the street stark naked, which should be illegal on any other day? And this is what I'm talking about with the self-reflection. So many LGBT folks need to do that self-reflection and realize, do you want equal rights or do you want special treatment? You understand what I'm saying? Because if you're a man and you decide just to identify as a woman, you suddenly think you want carte blanche and entree into women's sports, women's spaces. You are not entitled to that whatsoever. So the pride parades, you won't see me at one of the pride parades. I don't do crowds. I thought a lot of it was disgusting and gross and was just embarrassing and fringe and didn't do anything to help LGBT folks whatsoever. But something else that happened last Friday that was very important that I wholeheartedly support was the Supreme Court decision as it pertains to Maryland. So let me read this to you a little bit. The Supreme Court ruled in favor of a group of Maryland parents who sued a school board over its refusal to allow elementary school children to be taken out of classes with LGBTQ-themed storybooks. This was a 6-3 decision along ideological lines that came down on Friday from the Supreme Court. So basically, parents can opt out of some LGBTQ R2D2 education for their young children. And I support this because I think parents know best. As a gay man, I don't have kids. Most gay men do not have children. I think these parents know what is best for their kids. If your kid is not mature enough or you don't want your kid to be exposed to some of these themes and topics, especially by a teacher you don't know that well, and a classroom you're not monitoring, you should be allowed to pull your kid out and they shouldn't be penalized for not partaking in that. So that's something I wholeheartedly support. And some of these books we're seeing in children's classrooms are downright obscene. It's sort of like South Park. You know, South Park and Family Guy, these are not children's shows just because they're cartoons. And the same way, some of these books are not children's books just because they're cartoons. So let me read you. We actually pulled up some of these books that they're putting in these kids' classrooms, and I understand why the parents are upset and they don't want their kids exposed to this. So one of the books is called Pride Puppy, which is a picture book aimed at 3- and 4-year-olds that instructs them to look for items they might find at a gay pride parade. Why does a 3- or 4-year-old need that? Why can't children be children? Why are you pushing LGBT ideology onto these young kids when their brains are sponges and they're malleable and they should have the innocence that children deserve? So in the book, they're looking for underwear, lip rings, drag kings, and late gay liberation activist Marsha P. Johnson, whom critics once noted was a sex worker. So why are children who are 3 or 4 years old being given this book called Pride Puppy to look for items they would find at a pride parade? Little kids don't need to be at pride parades anymore. And I do judge the parents who take their kids to pride parades, but this is a book you shouldn't have in the classroom. Now, let's move on to this next book. This book is called Intersection Allies, which delves into transgenderism, and it's meant for K-5 students, and it explains transgender and non-binary concepts while asking the question, what pronouns fit you? Why do you have to even put this kernel into a young kid's mind who's trying to learn the ABCs, the 1, 2, 3s? Why do you have to even tell them, you might be born in the wrong body, you might be da-da-da-da-da? Why make that confusing sentiment and push it into a kid's mind when they're so malleable? It just makes no sense to me. I think it's gross, and kids should be allowed to be kids. And what I'll also say is with the education system in the United States of America, math and reading levels are so low. Why are we not in the top 10 or 20 countries when it comes to math and arithmetic and all of these things? And now the kids are having to read books about being, non-binary. That's insane to me. So the last book is called What Are Your Words? This is a book that tells students in a similar age range that one's pronouns can change like the weather, and follows one child who briefly embraces they, them pronouns. This is what really sickens me, right? Telling a kid you can just change your pronouns, change your gender like the weather. I'm sorry, it's gross. If a kid comes to you and says he or she feels like they were born in the wrong body, you handle that. But you don't constantly push these things onto these kids. This is called indoctrination. And this is why I support the Supreme Court decision as it pertains to Maryland. I think this should really just be the law of the land. If you are a parent out there, you know what is best for your kid. If you don't want your kid exposed to these LGBTQ themes, which I don't think they should be at such a young age, you have the right to pull your kid out of that classroom. And one thing I'll say to wrap up, a lot of these teachers think of themselves as activists now, right? They're not just teachers. We see the clips on social media. Some of these teachers, they're teaching kids you could have ze, zim, zir pronouns, things I've barely heard of, and I'm a gay man in my 20s. So these parents know what's best, and there are incredible teachers. There are amazing teachers out there. Many of you might be teachers now. You might be married to a teacher or dating a teacher. I could not be more grateful for our incredible educators across the country, but there are some fringe radicals who think of themselves as activists, and they want to push these books like Pride Puppy onto these children where they have to look for items you would find at a pride parade. I think it's gross. I support the Supreme Court decision. Does it mean I'm against the gays? Does it mean I'm against my own people? No, because most normal gays agree with me. They do not think young children need to be exposed to all of these themes, and the parents should know best.